As you can see, we have 40% of Democratic candidate, 51 seat in the parliament. I don't think that here will be some big arguments in terms of forming the government. In the last 50 years, we could see the new nation was born, Taiwanese. I think that very good lesson that can be taken from here, good approach, is to consider all the possible scenarios, to hope for the best, however, to be prepared to the worst.
Hello and welcome to Ukraine in Flames, a special project by Ukraine Media Center, an NGO Euro-Atlantic course. And I'm your host, Miroslava Yaremkiv. On January 13th, Taiwan had elections for its president and legislature. The world was watching closely due to heightened tensions in the Taiwan Strait. Since President Tsai Ing-wen took office in 2016, talks with China were halted, and there was worry about China's gray zone tactics and the rising possibility of actual hostilities. The Democratic Progressive Party's William Lai won the election, and the focus now is on the transition leading up to his inauguration on May 20th. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the global impact of Taiwan's elections, China's response to Lai's victory, and explore Taiwan's official stance on the Russian-Ukrainian war. If you want to learn more about this subject, please continue watching this video and subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss our videos in the future. The possibility that Beijing could use significant military force against Taiwan in 2024 if the People's Republic of China views Lai as crossing a critical red line cannot be ruled out. Beijing recognizes that Lai did not win over 50% of the presidential vote and that the DPP did not maintain a majority in the legislative yuan. This provides Beijing breathing space and allows China to continue to make the argument that peaceful unification is still possible, and Lai does not represent the will of the Taiwan people. More on that, please welcome former ambassador of Ukraine to the People's Republic of China and chairman of the board at Association of Ukrainian-Chinese Strategic Partnership, Ihor Lytvyn.
Nothing special shouldn't be expected right now because the population said that they want to have status quo. All the attempts of China to present the candidate from Democratic Progressive Party as like the one who is kind of like promoting war, like he is coming to power and then there will be war, it failed. And that should have been expected because as far as I know, up to 10% of population of Taiwan, and it was confirmed by Mr. Yuri right now, they are considering the opportunity to join the Chinese People's Republic of China. People of Taiwan, they are seeing Taiwan as formally independent. However, they are absolutely conscious. They are consciously sticking to the opinion that they need to cooperate with China even more. The exchange of continental China and Taiwan, these are dozens of billions of dollars. So the trade is pretty good. And we all know how Taiwan industry is dependent on this crazy, I would say, production of microchips produced on Taiwan. Different sides, the Communist Party of China or administration of the USA, they were hoping that they will impact somehow the results of elections, but it did not come true. From one side, of course, this propaganda company that Beijing was having against the head from Democratic Progressive Party, what he mentioned about the war, if he will be elected, then there will be war and so on and so forth. This had no impact to the opinions of people who were voting. Most population, as it was mentioned already, they consider these elections from the point of view of solving their internal issues, and those who like Kuomintang and Democratic Party, These are elder people already, and they thought that these elections can cause some issues in international arena, and such steps as $345 million for weaponing and buying what was there in stock of the USA. These are some certain results. Here, you have the weapons, and you should know that we will always help you. Well, of course, when the leader of one party and the leader of the other party publicly refuses to speak about their independence because formally they are independent, this is the opinion of both candidates. In addition to that, it is better for us to have good relationship with the USA that is supporting us, and this allows us to think about peaceful existence together with China, continental China, or about dignity in defending our formal independence with the help of the USA. It had some impact. As you can see, we have 40% of Democratic candidate, 51 seat in the parliament. I don't think that here will be some big arguments in terms of forming the government and so on, as I mentioned already. They will solve some internal issues together.
Despite Beijing's military pressure and attempts to influence the election results, the China factor appears to be less focal in this election campaign compared to previous years. Instead, domestic issues such as stagnant wages and lack of affordable housing have taken center stage, particularly among younger voters. Chief consultant at the National Institute for Strategic Studies, Alina Hrytsenko, will talk more about the future prospects for Taiwan's policy development.
In the nearest time, no radical changes um, should be expected. There are some opportunities that they are minimal. And first of all, we see that there is some worldview among the political elite in Taiwan, and both Lytvyn and Huyun, they said that there is no necessity to make some radical steps towards changing the diplomatic situation because their republic is functioning as independent state and no additional steps for changing status quo are needed. This is also a demonstration of the worldview of local population because in the last 50 years we could see the new nation was born, Taiwanese. Because when we are talking about Taiwan, very often we forget that there are not only Chinese people who had to leave after the end of war, not just their posteriors, but also it was under the jurisdiction of Japan. We often forget such details, but actually there are a few various nations that live there, and they have their own language each, actually, and they identify themselves as Taiwanese. And we can see that from some social studies. If their parents or grandparents, they can still doubt and identify themselves like 50-50 as Taiwanese and Chinese. So now youth is having more clear identification. By the way, it's a philosophical issue of birth of nation, political nation, whether we can consider some like Northern Koreas and Southern Korea as like separate nations, how different they are, because once it used to be the same nation and so on. What else was shown by elections? That more attention from the side of population, what I am observing, maybe Mr. Yuri will say that I'm wrong, but focus was not so much on external policy, but more on internal policy. And the fact that they could not get the majority in the parliament, it says that in terms of internal policy, they made a few mistakes, and the negative global economic situation was impacted. It was inflation, it was growth also of life expenditures and so on. So here, the focus was more on internal issues. In some media, we can see some issues, but 8 years being with this force, it's a logical result that they want to have some new political power who can change some mistakes that were made.
On the diplomatic front, Chinese authorities have issued statements criticizing the United States, Japan, and European countries for sending delegations to Taiwan in the wake of the election, and criticized the US State Department and the Philippines for issuing congratulatory statements to lie. More on the international community's response to Taiwan's elections, please welcome head of the Asia Pacific section at the Center for Army Conversion and Disarmament Studies, Yuri Poita.
Where I paid my attention is that, unfortunately, what is important, like we've seen that the attention of the whole world was on the elections and the results of the elections, but we realized that some big change won't happen in their policy and they will continue with the status quo. So maybe there will be some small reconfigurations, but nothing more. The reaction of China, I guess the first reaction was quite calm, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that the elections in Taiwan is an internal issue of China. And after that, what is also interesting, the China mentioned that Democratic Progressive Party has no support from the majority of population. And this is also one of the elements how China is trying to form their narrative. The second action from the Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs, China was criticizing the countries who greeted elections of Taiwan or who greeted the new president, because they were trying to mobilize the countries where they have a good relationship, or those countries who are dependent on China. And we see a range of names. I don't remember the exact number, but like 50 claims there were that they support the principle of united China that was mentioned already. And it's very interesting because, as a rule, those were countries of global east. And we can also observe that global south is very important from the point of view of China's attempt to form the client-centered, maybe, political situation. Some countries, after elections, they send official greetings, and that's about the countries that are still supporting diplomacy relationship with Taiwan. Some countries greeted them, but they did not mention the name of the new president. This is what was done by the EU, for example, and some greeted on the level of their ministries of foreign affairs, and that is also about Japan, Great Britain, and other countries. Czech Republic, for example, greeted them with the name of the winner. So, as for some aspects, how the situation can happen further on, and regarding scenarios, I think that very good lesson that can be taken from here, a good approach, is to consider all the possible scenarios, to hope for the best, however, to be prepared to the worst. And this is what is done by Taiwan, because unfortunately we cannot assess how rational the thinking is in People's Republic of China. We don't have access to these political circles. We don't have access to their strategic calculations. We cannot understand what is within the interest of people. And unfortunately, we can mention that the situation is changing faster than earlier.
You've been watching a special project by Ukraine Media Center and Euro-Atlantic course dedicated to the Russian-Ukrainian war, Ukraine in Flames. In the description under this video, you can find information on how you can help Ukraine fight Russian aggression. If you find our work useful, please like and share this video. Slava Ukraini!